Has someone ever walked into your life and, without a word, shattered the structure of your reality, like gravity had quietly shifted and suddenly you were orbiting something entirely new? Not because of how they looked or what they said, but because something in you remembered them, like an echo from a place beyond time. It doesn't feel like a crush or infatuation. It feels ancient, like your soul had written this chapter long before your body arrived to live it. This isn't the kind of meeting you explain, it's the kind that awakens you. A presence that doesn't flatter your ego but rattles your spirit. Carl Jung wouldn't call it love in the ordinary sense, he'd call it a summons. A rupture in the fabric of your unconscious meant to draw you inward, deeper, toward integration. But how can you tell whether this man is truly an agent of transformation or just another beautiful disguise worn by your old wounds? How do you discern a cosmic alignment from a repeated emotional pattern dressed in fresh skin? That's where the real journey begins. Not in his eyes, but in what his presence awakens within yours. Because some people aren't just people. They are messages. They are turning points. They are crossroads in human form. And if you're ready to understand what that actually means, beyond fantasy, beyond surface connection, stay with me. Because this isn't about romance. It's about remembering what your soul came here to learn. The first sign is undeniable. His presence reflects something hidden within you, something you've avoided, buried, or never dared to meet face to face. It's not just attraction, it's disruption. When he enters your world, he doesn't simply stir emotion. He activates it with such intensity that it feels like your very essence is being stirred awake. There's excitement, yes, but also discomfort. This is no ordinary connection. This is a mirror held up to your unconscious. A confrontation with the self you've kept in shadow. According to Carl Jung, we all carry a concealed dimension of the psyche, a vast inner landscape of unmet needs, repressed rage, untouched passion, and forgotten truths. And sometimes, another person walks in and pulls that entire world to the surface, not by trying, but simply by existing. It's not a coincidence if you find yourself magnetized by someone who embodies qualities you were taught to suppress. Maybe you've always avoided your own assertiveness, and suddenly, you're captivated by someone who embodies raw intensity and unapologetic power. Or maybe you've denied your own sensuality, and now, this man's gaze alone ignites feelings you never gave yourself permission to feel. If control has been your shield, he may become the one force that invites, no, demands, you release it. These aren't flaws in the connection, they're the very reason it exists. The universe doesn't send these people to please you, it sends them to awaken you. Not in softness, but in fire. His presence becomes a mirror not just of who you are, but of who you've exiled within yourself. It's not always pleasant. It's rarely easy. But it is sacred. Because true love, in its highest form, doesn't simply comfort, it evolves. It disturbs just enough to move you forward. And this kind of connection isn't here to entertain your illusions, it's here to strip them away so that what's left is real. Not curated. Not safe. But whole. The second sign is more subtle but no less profound. He activates something ancient and internal, your inner masculine, the sacred force within that Carl Jung referred to as the animus. This isn't about gender or roles, it's about energetic balance. Within every woman lives a masculine archetype, a voice that influences how she makes choices, pursues dreams, asserts her truth, and protects her inner world. When a man steps into your life and feels uncannily significant, as though he carries a thread of your fate, it may be because he doesn't just attract you, he mirrors that internal masculine essence you've unconsciously carried all along. Before this energy becomes conscious, it often appears as internalized criticism or unreachable ideals, a whisper that says you're not enough unless you're chosen, saved, or validated by someone stronger, wiser, or more complete than you. This can lead to obsession masked as love, where his approval becomes oxygen and his absence feels like death. But when you begin the inner work of integration, the illusion dissolves. You stop projecting your unlived strength onto him and begin to recognize it as something already within you, waiting for permission to rise. You stop mistaking him for a rescuer and start seeing him as a reflection of your own potential, your voice, your intelligence, your power. His presence no longer lures you into fantasy, it inspires you into clarity. You can admire him deeply without collapsing your identity to earn his love. You begin to speak without shrinking, to stand without apology, and to love without disappearing. If you feel braver in your truth around him, more willing to take up space, to challenge, to walk your path with conviction, then it's not because he completes you. It's because he activates what was already yours. He's not the destination. He's the mirror that reveals the road inside you. And when you walk beside someone like that, the relationship doesn't feel like dependency, it feels like evolution. The third sign is the quiet language of the universe, those inexplicable moments when reality bends just enough to get your attention. It's called synchronicity, and to Carl Jung, it wasn't random. It was sacred. These aren't just coincidences, they're aligned echoes of your inner landscape reflected in the world around you. Not hallucinations of a love-starved mind, but gentle nods from something greater. You may find yourself dreaming of him before you've ever spoken his name, or noticing his initials everywhere during moments of emotional clarity. Perhaps your first meeting feels so precisely timed, so impossibly orchestrated, it leaves you wondering if fate has been gently weaving your paths together behind the scenes. But the magic isn't really about him. It's about what his arrival activates within you. These strange alignments aren't affirmations that he's the one, they're questions. Invitations. They whisper, what is awakening in you now? What parts of your old identity are crumbling? Maybe the patterns of fear you've carried for years suddenly feel irrelevant. Maybe the version of you who used to shrink, doubt, or chase begins to dissolve in his presence, not because of him, but because you're remembering who you really are. Jung never said synchronicity meant permanence. He said it meant purpose. These moments are thresholds, not promises. They're doors swinging open into a deeper version of you. So instead of asking, is he mine? The wiser question is, who am I becoming through this? A soul connection isn't proven by duration. It's revealed by transformation. And if his presence pushes you to expand, to reflect, to love yourself with a depth you've never touched before, then that is sacred. That is real. And that is enough. When a man is truly aligned with your soul's evolution, when his presence feels less like a fantasy and more like a force, you won't find yourself swept into fairy tale illusions. Instead, you'll feel something far more powerful, a call to rise. He doesn't arrive with promises of perfection or permanence. He arrives like a storm and a stillness all at once, disrupting your comfort, challenging your patterns, and stirring your deepest truths to the surface. He doesn't offer you escape, he offers you a mirror. And in that mirror, you'll see the version of yourself you've been silently waiting to meet. You'll feel your courage waking up from its slumber, your voice finding volume, your spine straightening into strength you didn't know you carried. He will not ask you to shrink. He will demand that you expand, not for him, but for yourself. His presence will draw lines where you used to blur, teach you to say no where you once said yes just to keep the peace. He will not rescue you from your fire, he will remind you how to burn with purpose. That's the mark of someone chosen by something bigger than fate. Through Carl Jung's eyes, love is not a reward. It's a catalyst. Every relationship becomes symbolic, a vessel of revelation, a container for transformation, a sacred disruption. The people we meet are never random. They arrive as reflections of what we most need to face or reclaim. The real question is never, will he stay? It's, will I awaken through this? Because the universe is always whispering, through synchronicities, through connections, through emotion. But most people are too busy chasing what looks good to feel what's real. So ask yourself, are you truly listening? Because the listening doesn't begin with his words or his actions. It begins the moment you go inward, where the real answers have always been waiting. Carl Jung understood that love is never random. It is an orchestrated upheaval, a sacred force that arrives not to soothe but to shape. It doesn't always come wrapped in permanence or dressed for forever. Sometimes it arrives like lightning, brief, brilliant, and blindingly honest. The people we meet on this path are not always meant to build a life with us. Some are sent to awaken the parts of ourselves we buried long ago. Their presence doesn't promise a lifelong chapter, it delivers a mirror, a message, a momentum toward deeper becoming. Yet this truth often unsettles us. Because when the connection feels soul-deep, timeless, and magnetic, we instinctively want it to last. We mistake intensity for destiny. But the universe plays by deeper laws. Sometimes, that wild, undeniable bond is not here to complete your story, it's here to rewrite the part of it you forgot how to read. It's here to return you to yourself. To show you where you abandoned your truth, where you lost your voice, where your spirit needed fire to break through the stone. When you begin to understand this, your questions evolve. You stop clinging to the fantasy of forever. You stop asking, will he stay long enough to save me? And instead, you begin to ask, what did his arrival awaken in me that I was too afraid to touch alone? Because real love, true soul encounters, they don't always stay. But they never leave you unchanged. Most of us were raised on the silent promise of rescue, the idea that one day, someone flawless would arrive to mend our wounds, fill our emptiness, and make sense of everything. It's a beautiful story, but it's not truth. Carl Jung would call this a projection of the unconscious animus, an inner fantasy whispering that wholeness exists in someone else's arms. That if you just find him, all the missing pieces will magically fall into place. But the universe is not in the business of granting illusions. When it sends someone significant into your life, it's not to deliver comfort, it's to ignite change. That person may not arrive bearing soft words and gentle fixes. Instead, he may stand in front of you like a riddle, a challenge, a mirror that doesn't flatter, but reveals. He doesn't come to rescue the broken pieces, you were never broken. He comes to stir what's dormant, to reflect back the shadows you've refused to face, and to summon you toward integration. His presence forces you to confront the parts of yourself that have long gone unloved, your doubt, your rage, your desire, your power. He doesn't complete you, he disrupts the illusion that you were ever incomplete. And in that disruption, the real alchemy begins. One unmistakable sign that you're standing before a soul catalyst is how intensely he unsettles you, not with cruelty, but with clarity. His presence doesn't flatter your ego, it confronts it. His truth doesn't coddle your illusions, it dismantles them. There's a sharpness in his honesty that pierces through your defenses, not to wound, but to awaken. His affection doesn't lull you into safety, it dares you into rawness. His gaze doesn't simply admire you, it calls something buried to the surface, demanding you show up as your whole self, unmasked. In the electric friction between longing and fear, there lies an invitation. Not to perform, not to please, but to finally meet yourself. To look into the discomfort and ask, what is this reaction trying to teach me? Maybe it's time to let go of the facade. Maybe it's time to speak what you've silenced. Maybe it's time to reclaim the parts of your power you once abandoned to be loved. Jung would urge you not to run from the trigger, but to study it. Let this moment be your mirror. Let it break what's false and reveal what's real. Because in the sacred tension he evokes, there is a doorway, and only by walking through it do you become more whole. When you cross paths with a man who's truly aligned with your soul's journey, something subtle but powerful shifts. You no longer feel the urge to contort yourself to be chosen. There's no need to chase validation or dilute your voice. Instead, you feel an unfamiliar ease in standing fully in who you are. He doesn't fall into the roles your subconscious once assigned. He won't play the savior, the fixer, or the fantasy. With calm integrity, he steps outside those narratives and invites something more honest. He calls you into presence, into depth, into ownership of your voice. His energy reflects your inner strength so clearly that you can no longer deny it. Not because he hands it to you, but because he reminds you it was always there. He doesn't shrink in the face of your power, and he doesn't inflate when you're unsure. Instead, he encourages your inner authority to rise. He listens not to correct, but to understand. He doesn't feed your self-doubt, he exposes it to the light, showing you that you no longer need it. This kind of connection doesn't ask you to disappear, it dares you to fully arrive. Around this kind of connection, synchronicity begins to hum like background music from the unseen, a series of dreams that feel more like memories, symbols that appear with impossible precision, numbers that repeat like cosmic nudges. But these aren't signs meant to bind you to him or lure you into fantasy. They are awakenings, subtle but unmistakable calls to consciousness. They arrive to stir something ancient within you, to peel back the veil over your inner landscape. And once they've done their job, they fall silent, leaving you alone with the sacred task of transformation. Because the real work doesn't happen in the stars, it happens in your soil. With a soul-aligned man, your darkness won't be shamed or shoved aside. He won't try to fix your wounds or paint over them with sweetness. He'll witness them. He'll stay present as you face what's raw and real. Not with solutions, but with space. Not with answers, but with presence. He'll walk beside you as you navigate your internal terrain, not because he holds the map, but because he honors your journey. He won't pretend to fill your empty places. He'll reflect back the fullness already forming inside you. In his presence, you'll feel less like someone seeking completion and more like someone reclaiming forgotten power. Not because he gives you something you lack, but because he amplifies what's already there, your truth, your strength, your wholeness, rising to the surface at last. When Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong unfolding towards psychological and spiritual wholeness, he saw relationships not as distractions from that journey, but as its most potent mirrors. If this man is truly part of your path, his presence won't blur your identity, it will sharpen it. You will begin to feel more you than ever before. Your intuition won't whisper anymore, it will speak clearly, confidently. Your softness won't be guarded, it will become a strength you allow yourself to inhabit. Your voice will no longer tremble in search of approval, it will rise, anchored in truth. Around him, you will find the courage to rest, not because you are tired, but because you finally feel safe enough to lay your armor down. You will no longer chase affection to feel valuable. You will be the value, unshaken, steady, whole. Love won't be a role you perform, it will be a space you inhabit. And even if your paths part, because not every soul connection is meant to stay, you will hold the memory not with bitterness, but reverence. You will thank the pain that softened your heart. You will feel a quiet echo of recognition that still lives in your chest like a hum only you can hear. You won't cling out of fear, because you'll have learned to trust. What's aligned will remain, and what leaves is making space for something even more expansive. That's what real love does. It doesn't trap or consume. It liberates. It pushes you inward, toward the source of your strength. It reminds you that your capacity for presence, truth, and depth was always within you. The right man won't pull you off your mission. He'll walk beside it, step for step. He won't ask you to dim your light. He'll illuminate his beside yours. If you found him, honor the connection, but not at the expense of your center. Keep returning to your path, your purpose, your deepest truth. And if he hasn't arrived, don't search with an aching void. Root yourself in the abundance that already exists within. The universe doesn't send love to complete the empty. It sends it to mirror those already living in alignment. Jung would remind you that the universe is not some distant force, it pulses through your decisions, your patterns, your readiness. You are not a passive character, you are the co-architect of the relationships you call in. And the love that meets you in that truth won't rescue you. It will reflect your sovereignty, your healing, your becoming. Because the most powerful love story isn't about being chosen by someone else. It's about choosing yourself so completely that you become ready, finally, fully, to meet another who has done the same. Remain awake. Remain rooted. Remain sovereign. This is not just love, it's philosophy embodied in real time.